first. So a lot of you are interested in the environment. I remember this from the very first week of class. That was kind of the most mentioned topic when I was issues you're interested in. So what issues, then specific ones, fall under the umbrella of environmental and biodiversity? You can get as specific as you want here. Yeah. Waste. Trash, waste, recycling as well. Yeah, everything that falls into that.
The oil spills?
The oil spills, yes.
I even say the trading of waste, so North American waste going to developing countries.
Yes, yes. And also, I found out something interesting the other day. I think it was Sweden, but I'm not 100% sure, actually has to import waste from other countries because they use it to fuel certain, and they don't actually produce enough anymore. So they actually have to purchase or import waste from other countries. So wouldn't that be like a great problem to have if we didn't have enough waste? So yeah, there's an economic apparatus too. What other issues? What? Those are the only two environmental and biological.
Water pollution?
Water pollution, yeah, again, I mean, the oil spills usually affect the water and land, but then there's a whole other degree of what's going on with the coral reefs. Yeah, absolutely.
Global warming?
Global warming, exactly. Huge, huge issue of our time, and it's a problem that, I don't know, whenever you check the news, it's even more depressing, and then they say even changes now, I just read an article yesterday, that even the changes that are being implemented now might not be able to stave off the effects of global warming. And then you see giant superstorms, hurricanes, and crazy tornadoes and typhoons, and it's all somewhat caused or correlated by the rising global temperatures. Yeah. So there's a lot that falls under this rubric, and I'm really going to be showing you quite a bit today. And again, kind of some things. We'll point them out as we go. First of all, I'm going to show you this image. It's a really beautiful picture, don't you think? It's haunting, it's beautiful. It's this coral reef. And what is interesting about this? Can you tell what's interesting about this image, or what is this coral reef? Can you tell? Is it real?
I was going to assume that it's fake.
Okay.
There's a lot of interesting colors and like the vibrant fuchsias over there.
Yeah. I mean, well, and I've never seen I've never seen like the Great Barrier Reef or anything like that in person, so I don't exactly know true to life. Yeah, these colors are made, but it's very hard to get that kind of photography underwater. Yeah. So we're going with fake. Does anyone know what it's made out of? Can you tell?
I would say yes.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I think it's what you're going to say, right?
Yeah, wool,
Yeah.
like scarves, like just one thing like a scarf.
Yeah, especially this one here. Let me see. I feel like I've made a scarf like out of that material. Yeah, exactly. It's knit. Well, it's crochet. So this is a project by two sisters, Margaret and Christine Wertheim. And I believe they're based out of Australia, and they were addressing the dissolution of the Great Barrier Reef, Australia's national treasure, that is, as it's rapidly disappearing. So here's a detail. You can kind of see a little better now that it is, in fact, knit, crochet, it's made out of yarn, all these different textures. And what they discovered was that crochet work, it wasn't just an arbitrary choice. Crochet work best approximates the hyperbolic geometry of coral reefs. So again, they were aiming for naturalism. They were aiming to really appreciate the complexity of these systems. But we really can't really conceive of actually how complex a coral reef is. All the organisms that are part of it, that comprise the actual coral, and the organisms that live off of it as well. Other craftspeople and crocheters joined in. So this is just one of the coral reef projects. I don't have all the other images, but you can actually see other groups of people started crocheting other coral reefs. So they're kind of recreating this underwater ecosystem in fiber, in wool, in all these different fibers above water, taking it out of its natural setting, but again, just this great deal of effort and craftsmanship and attention to detail that goes into these projects. And these crochet reefs also, to me at least, they remind me of the fragility of the coral reef. I mean, they're very delicately worked, objects. And it's all, think of, they're each comprised out of a single piece of yarn or thread. If that were to unravel, think of how the coral reefs are being, with underwater pollution, with the amount of chemicals that are being dumped into the ocean, with the rising water temperatures, everything that's going on, they're unraveling in real life. And it's so easy to unravel one of these. You just pull the thread and the whole thing, all that work comes undone. So it's quite a poignant way to kind of start off this discussion. Another project that I think, just another beautiful image, I want to say. I'm showing you, last week you got to see depressing images. This week you're going to see pretty ones, I think. This is a project in the 80s. It's 1982. It's called Wheat Field. And it's striking because she's walking through a golden field of wheat in lower Manhattan. And as far as I know, there's no golden fields of wheat in Manhattan. But again, there was actually a plot of land adjacent to Wall Street and the World Trade Center, the old World Trade Center back then, where Dennis and a bunch of collaborators planted this field of wheat. So what could the wheat stand for? What does this bring in mind?
It's speaking of that people want to take back to the city, maybe for useful people, or in the city, no one produces their own food, and that's not very empowering. So maybe this empowers people to grow their own food and take up the space for people.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's good. It's definitely creating a space for people. By taking the people and the concrete and the buildings out of the space, it actually creates a space for the people.
I would like similar to that, like a commentary on like capitalism, industrialization, urbanization, that before the Industrial Revolution, people actually did produce their own, they had the means of production, and then that's been taken away with the capitalist regimes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not a coincidence that you can see the old World Trade Center right here. It's kind of looming over it. You see, Wall Street. This is in that part of Manhattan, the financial sector. It's kind of looming over the wheat field. So it's, you don't forget that when you're walking through this field of wheat. So yes, it's representing an entire system. You're both right on with this. It's representing food, energy, commerce, world trade, and economics. This is a quote from Dennis. It referred to mismanagement, waste, world hunger, and ecological concerns. It was an intrusion into the citadel, a confrontation of high civilization. Then again, it was also Shangri-La, a small paradise. So there's a lot going on in that assessment of this project, and it's true. So I like that image of the confrontation of high civilization with the agrarian people. And again, the juxtaposition of her walking through this field of wheat. We would think it was photoshopped if we didn't know that it was part of a piece that actually took place, because it's so incongruous. And again, this idea of the Shangri-La, the small paradise in the middle of this huge urban space. It's an oasis. New York has parks. It has Central Park, Battery Park, Bryant Park. There's a bajillion parks in New York City, but none so pastoral. None that really kind of both remove you from the space of the city, but then also surround you with it at the same time. And you don't get the same feeling when you're walking through Central Park. It's a very different experience. And again, the color as well, very striking. Again, the golden. That's a color you don't see in New York's parks. So really taking it, separating it from what the rest of the urban parks kind of signify. So this piece also introduces an idea that it's going to go through a couple of projects here, that gardening is activism, and kind of how we think about this idea of gardening or agriculture, and how to make that into an activist piece or an art project. And there's a lot going on there, because I don't know, when I think of gardening, outside of the activist context, I think of my parents in their backyard with their flowers, or people doing small urban gardens and they have their little plot and they've got their tomatoes and they're using that so they get tasty tomatoes instead of the ones you get at Loblaws. And so they're it's kind of personal. Gardening is introspective, it's personal. For a lot of people, it's calming and meditative. Think of Zen gardens, for example, rock gardens. So it's kind of a contrast to this idea of activist gardening. Gardening that is seeking to make change in the world, to cause something much larger than itself, than it stands for. And so, there's several, I'm just going to pick out a few here that have had a much larger activist connection. And I believe this was, I did not put the year for this one, but you know the year for this, right? For the
Early 90s.
Early 90s, right, yeah. I didn't know these, I don't know if it was
It might be
92 or
89
90.
and 94.
Yeah, because it was this project was in conjunction with the AIDS activist movements that we were talking about last week. So again, that's the thing, like early 90s or maybe late 80s. This was in Chicago. So the group HaHa built and maintained a hydroponic garden in a storefront on the north side of Chicago. Participants grew vegetables, which included kale, collard, mustard greens, and Swiss chard, and then also therapeutic herbs for people with HIV. So this was a community garden, a project that was creating food, therapeutic herbs, kind of some medicinal qualities as well. This idea of food as medicine, or nourishing the soul. So that all kind of comes into it. And then again, the connection with HIV/AIDS activism. The idea that people afflicted with this disease deserve a community of support. They deserve access to, this is a terrible image on the right, I'm really sorry, it's the world's tiniest JPEG, I think. But there's the best image I could find of the interior of the space. Again, it was a storefront. We've seen that before. You saw that last week, kind of the shop window of the ACT UP Let the Record show. That was in the window of the museum, out onto the street. You see that in urban spaces a lot because when you're passing shop windows, you can't help but look into them. And it's advertising space. So again, it all kind of it's connecting with the public, connecting this kind of, and it's incongruous. Again, when you're walking down the street and you see a garden in a shop, you're going to want to look into it. You're going to want to find out what's going on, and why is this garden there? Where did it come from? If you didn't already know. And they also, the space provided bi-weekly meals, educational activities, meeting space, public events, and information on alternative therapies. Also HIV/AIDS services in Chicago, and nutrition and horticulture, as well as a place to garden. So it was really a multi-purpose project, again, aimed at bettering the lives of a particular group of people. And as we saw last week, a group that had been marginalized and really had to fight to be, kind of not blamed for their condition themselves, to be recognized as people deserving of rights, people who were not outside society or on the margins. So again, gardening is activism. Gardening as, this isn't necessarily thinking about it as in the line of sustainability. This is before that becomes a buzzword. But it's showing how gardening can again nourish not just people or the soil, but nourishes a community. Again, this is Chicago, just so you know, it's not New York, but Chicago. Here's another piece which I found, this is a more contemporary piece. This goes actually, so it says 2007, but it's actually ongoing. 2007 through 2017, so it is not over yet, but it does have a definite end date. So this is Jeremy Deller's Speak to the Earth, and it will tell you. And what he did, it's kind of a little complicated, but so Munster, Germany, the city of Munster in Germany, has a huge sculpture project exhibition in 2007. I believe they have it every year, but
it's actually every 10 years.
Every 10 years, so that's why it's 10 years, yes. Sorry, the sculpture project exhibition every 10 years. They had it in 2007. Visitors, so the images you see here are visitors to the sculpture project. They're invited, so they were taken from the area of the main exhibition to visit an area on the edge of town where these community gardens were. And Deller had been working allotments to keep diaries of their experiences, of just kind of what they were doing with gardens, and just kind of really kind of getting at what it means, an urban garden, green space with on the edge of the city kind of thing. And so he invited the allotment holders to keep these diaries over the subsequent decade. So from 2007 to 2017, where they would be shown again, as sort of a conclusion to all of this. So it's a long-term community involvement. A decade is a long period of time. It's enough time that things change, the environment changes, the earth changes, the people will have, some of these will have swapped over into other hands. And again, this idea that the community garden is elevated as an art piece. Again, something that we don't normally think of as, again, there's something that when you take one of these allotments in the city, again, it's not normally an activist statement or an artistic undertaking. It's for yourself. It's personal. And the idea of diary. If you're a diarist, again, it's personal. It's for yourself. It's introspective. But then again, this combination of private and public, taking the private, the action that is purely for yourself, rendering it public, and again using nature and the garden as a space to do this. So again, and again the fact that it's open-ended, it's not finished. It will be finished at some point soon, but not that soon. But it will be finished. But again, it grows and changes along with the participants. So it's not really within the artist's control. Much like the garden is not really within the control of the gardener. It's as if he's gardening these people. Looking at it that way. And here's another project, again, activist gardening. And there's quite a few to this, but I'll show you a video from about one of them. So this is Fritz Haig, Edible Estates. And so the project was initiated in 2005 with the first version of it in Salina, Kansas. So what the project does is replace domestic front lawns with edible landscapes, which then that comprises an exhibition then is shown elsewhere. By edible landscapes, so gardens. These are regional gardens that are supposed to replace kind of the resource-intensive front lawn. I mean, if you think about it, especially in a place like Kansas, which is hotter and drier than it is here. It's not a desert by any means. I mean, you grow a lot there. But it's still hotter and drier, especially in the summers in Kansas. So imagine how much water it takes to keep a lawn nourished, how much energy, the resources it takes just to have an ornamental front lawn with grass that has no real function other than to look really pretty. And whenever cities, I mean, Toronto probably doesn't have droughts, but whenever cities that are going through a tremendous drought, the first thing that the city ordinance kind of, the first sort of measures that the city puts in place are usually for people to stop mowing or stop watering their lawns. That's the first thing that's supposed to kind of die so that the water supply can be maintained. Then you see in places such as the United Arab Emirates, if you look at Las Vegas, even Palm Springs, California, where you have desert landscapes with golf courses all over them, beautifully manicured lawns. It's kind of this very jarring. The idea of the oasis in the desert with the manicured golf course in the desert. So that's my little rant about lawns. So this, that's great if you have a lawn and you live in a wet place. But again, especially in a dry climate, the lawn here becomes something that gives back. And he's also asking the question specifically, what do we do with the cities, neighborhoods, streets, yards, and homes we have inherited from previous generations? What do we do with this space? Not just the urban space, but the suburban space. We purchase a house, it has its lawn, it has its garden. Do we make it our own? Do we just maintain what came before it? These are a lot of really interesting questions. And how do we then make a space our own? And is it something so radical as to plant a completely edible garden on your front front lawn, would that really piss off the neighborhood organization that you live, there's a lot of regulations that this could also be kind of grading up against. So I'm going to show you part of the video that's associated with this first. There's a lot of, okay, so yeah, I'll just show you a bit of this video and then I'll see what you think.
How are we supposed to read both at the same time?
Make an effort.
Yeah, there's another one.
Livestock has to be responsible for mowing the lawn. Diverse prairie gives way to monoculture. On the bottom, it's mostly talking about pesticides, chemicals that are used to maintain lawns. At the top, he said most lawns are only occupied while they are being tended. Pointing out the more interesting ones, right?
Why are they doing that? Yeah, well, I'm trying to read everything. It makes it even harder.
So focus on the pictures. You can see them making the edible garden, the labor. Now it's down,
Why is it going so fast?
I'm not speeding it up, I promise.
Holy crap. Chill.
Okay, I'm going to pause it on the over. So you saw the transformation of the lawn from kind of what we kind of naturalized as the kind of suburban aesthetic, with clean green lawn, no weeds, to, and I would back up if I could, but kind of you saw the garden and kind of the way it was, obviously it's a new garden, it's not completely overgrown yet with, it doesn't have edible plants and flowering yet, but the garden, the lawn is a productive space. And of course, one of you just mentioned that would really piss some people off. I think, the neighbor. If my parents, I use my parents because they live in a nice suburban neighborhood. If they did that, they would be fined. They would be told to dig that up and put their nice pretty lawn back down. It would really anger people. Even if they did it in their backyard. and actually had, you can have small gardens in your backyard, especially in a lot of these neighborhoods, but you can't transform your whole backyard into something like that. It goes against the code. And in such a way, even so, for example, even when parents wanted to change the color of their shutters on the house, they had to get like 50 signatures or something, that kind of thing. So it's ridiculous, the aesthetic codes of certain, and they don't even live in like Celebration, Florida, where you can't do anything because it's all owned by Disney. But that's the point. So it's breaking the codes. It's actually posing a challenge, so it's not just for the benefit of the people who are hosting this garden, but it's part of a neighborhood. These houses are not in the middle of nowhere. So the neighbors are clearly going to be intrigued, angered. They're going to have a response to this. They might benefit from the vegetables that are grown here. They might want to do it themselves for all they know. They might say, hey, save some money at the grocery store if I turn my front lawn into a productive space. And yeah, I know the video is a little manic, but it kind of, it had this like, and then the wacky fonts and everything. That was kind of priceless. But, so another project of his, domestic integrities, kind of goes hand in hand with the edible estate. So just FYI, the edible estates project is still going on. You can go on his website. They have 12 different ones that have already been created, and then there's a 13th that's in progress, and there's videos associated with all of them. And there's all over the world, not just the United States or North America. I think the most recent one was in Budapest. So, for example, this is something that has really universal, or maybe universal Western appeal. So here we have domestic integrity. And this is a scene from one of the 2012 versions of it in New York. And this is in a museum. So this is activities and items based on or made with materials gathered from their environment, from pickled vegetables and baked bread to herbal arrangements and homemade remedies. And they're brought to this space. So it's trying to meld gardening with community, the indoors and the outdoors, collapsing these two spaces. So again, you have the garden, the lawn, the edible estate, but then you also have to attend to the domestic space within. It's not just enough to transform the lawn, you have to transform the people who live inside the house. So it's kind of a holistic approach, and again, this focus on community. The edible estate does not happen with just one person, it happens with a small army of people making a garden. Again, you see here, people, and these rugs are made by people associated with the specific exhibition where this, because there's different versions of domestic integrity. So again, this one in New York, they made the rug first, and it became a space sort of like a nexus for blending the indoors, the outdoors, and bringing the community together. So when we think about gardening, we think about food, these are all issues of environmental activism, thinking about where your food comes from. These are issues that and now I think, people are questioning. I would hope people are questioning, to the point where, so yesterday was American Thanksgiving, and I know a lot of people back home were like buying heritage birds and artisanal turkeys that had never been caged because, again, they're very obsessed now with sustainable farming, and the fact that those turkeys cost like $200 is beside the point because the turkey was at least treated fairly, and apparently they taste better. I don't really know, I don't eat turkey, but apparently they taste much better, and they're more humane, they're better for the environment. So again, this idea that we think about our food really, again, it was kind of lost for a while. If you think about the whole of human history, humans maintained a connection to the earth. They fought for their food, they hunted, they gathered. Even with civilization, there was still not this massive gap we have from just separating our food from the production of the food to the consumption. That really happened with industrialization and mechanization of consumption. The fast food era, if you think of McDonald's and this idea of standardization, fried chicken as well. Like these huge fast food chains standardized how chickens were to be bred, how they were to be especially back in the day, back in the 60s, that was comforting. That you could travel across from coast to coast, and you could still eat your burger, and it would taste the way you wanted it to. It wouldn't have some regional variation. And I was reading, doing an article yesterday about Wonder Bread and kind of how Wonder Bread has sort of fallen in its estimation. I believe this is on Slate, I think. This wasn't like an academic article. But Wonder Bread and how it used to be a high-class thing to have Wonder Bread, white bread, store-bought sliced bread. And now it's the artisanal, lumpy bread with the grains, and that's the high-class bread. So again, it's cyclical almost, but this return to artisanal and locally sourced food. Again, it's not. I would say it's also spurred on by activism, by visual culture, by artists and people thinking visually, who have helped to really convince the public that these are issues that we need to concern ourselves with. It didn't happen naturally. We don't know what the insides of slaughterhouses look like by and large, because we're not allowed to see them. It's because of filmmakers and activists, journalists who really get in there and tell us what's going on in industrial processing plants. So anyway, that was my little aside. But for example, here's some Jesse Graves, the environmental graffiti artist, who he puts these stencils up. So this was before the grocery store, just kind of reminding us. It's a little reminder of where the food comes from, what plants actually look like. They're in the ground, they're in the earth. And what is that earth made of? What chemicals are in it? Are we buying food that is going to nourish us, or is it going to hurt us? And here we have oil. Oil in a plastic bottle. How many of you, you're all so good, I don't see anybody with a plastic bottle. I was going to pick on something.
Oh, I have one.
You have one? Okay, I'm going to pick on you. No. Again, so the connection between plastic and oil, this is also plastic. I'm not, I'm also guilty. But the connection between disposable plastic, no matter how much we recycle it, plastic degrades even in the recycling process. Not like metal. Metal is actually conserved. But plastic can only be recycled so many times before it's useless. So this connection between petroleum products, and then household products or everyday products that we use without really thinking about where they come from. And this word here, oil. Oil has such a loaded, it's such a loaded word nowadays. I think of unrest in the Middle East, which continues even more. Famous oil spills like the BP spill that happened just a couple of years ago, and even before that, the famous Exxon Valdez spill, where you had the images of the sad little baby seals covered in oil. And it's also, we can have the convenience of carrying the bottled water around with us. It's kind of, again, this is meant to kind of make all those connections, to make us think about the products we're using. And here's this is attributed to Banksy. I don't believe in global warming, and then the water flood, rising up to kind of cover the words. It's, the point is pretty obvious here. But again, it's like graffiti. We've seen a lot of graffiti in this class. We've seen examples of it in the Arab Spring, Occupy, all these movements, environmental graffiti as well. But there's a bit of kind of an issue with graffiti and the environment, and that is graffiti isn't necessarily like clean or natural. When we think of spray paint, we think of what they're actually making graffiti or these stencils out of. It's actually, in a way, could be harming the environment, doing a small part to do that. So there's other graffiti artists who kind of made new ways to think about graffiti in an environmentally friendly way and bring attention to, the one on the left brings attention to the layer of filth that kind of covers most city buildings. I believe his name is, his first name is Chris, I know that, but his last name escapes me for the moment, but he calls this reverse graffiti. So cleaning the walls of buildings to make the graffiti, it's sort of this extractive process. And again, showing how filthy our urban environment really is. So you might not actually think about the soot, the kind of grime that's on the sides of buildings until you see it removed. And on the right, you have something with moss art. So it's not necessarily graffiti, but apparently there is a recipe for this. I saw it on a Canadian website. You can make your own moss, like sprayable moss, and it can grow in certain locations. I've never tried this. I don't know if it actually works.
It does.
It
My
does?
friends actually tried it.
Oh.
So a lot of them are graffiti artists and they're kind of looking for an alternative. And then they just went back to graffiti after, but it's actually pretty cool.
That is
It looks
okay.
awesome.
Well, now I like that someone's actually like knows firsthand about, because I saw these and I'm like, these are really cool. I wonder if, because there's a lot of these moss art images, people actually could do that so easily. It's good to know. So this idea that, you know, you can make your own homemade moss, turn the side of the building into a living thing. And you could, again, there's kind of this weird tension between those two images, because on the left you have, you know, the unacceptable filth being cleaned off the side of the building. On the right you have the dirt, the moss, being sprayed onto the building. So there are different approaches, but again, thinking about kind of the living organisms on the, you know, surrounding us, our environment. Because the filth on this building isn't just dirt, it's mildew, it's mold, it's spores as well. So again, there's acceptable and unacceptable dirt. And then the spore art, the moss art makes me think of this lovely little car. I remember reading about this a long time before I ever was going to teach this class, but and I remember reading that it's actually really hard to grow this sort of grassy stuff. You know, it's hard to grow that on the side of a car. Apparently, this is a real like technological achievement to get the sod and everything to adhere and actually get the grass to grow properly. I'm not an expert on how it works. But you can try it with your car at home, maybe. It's a merging of green aesthetics, craft, and ingenuity. And it's, you know, it obviously green beetle, it has a play on words as well. But it also points to kind of what's going to solve our problems for the future. It's going to be ingenuity. It's going to be this green sensibility. And it's, again, it's kind of an attention-getting way to make you think about these things. Same artist, oak bike. Again, these impractical means of conveyance. We saw it earlier with Ayora and Calzavia and those, you know, the upside-down table boat and the moped with the trumpet. Artists, you know, thinking about conveyance, it's actually, you know, it's a common kind of way to think about issues. Actually, is think about transportation and conveyances. And this boat, this bike is maybe it's usable. I don't think it would be. Maybe you could ride it. It's definitely natural, but then it's also unnatural at the same time. There's like this weird, there's just a weirdness about it. But again, similar to the beetle, it's making us think, you know, trying to think about the materials it's made out of, the natural world we live in. And when we see the oak bike, we think, of course, of our own bikes. And are they cheaply made in China, kind of things, and who knows what impact those factories and the shipping have on the environment. I don't know, maybe that comes to mind. Maybe it doesn't. Trash.
Is it handmade or is it actually grown? Do you know?
Grown? Oh, but you mean like grown in those shapes?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Is it consistent with the beetle?
I think it was, I mean, it was still assembled. I mean, obviously it had to be assembled. I don't know, I don't know the details of whether or not he grew it into those wacky shapes. I bet he could. He's got the ingenuity to do it. Yeah, so, yeah. So here's another kind of way of thinking about trash and kind of not maybe the natural landscape, but again, our landscape of trash and what we've thrown away. There's a movement called fashion, making fashion out of trash. Would any of you wear this? Just FYI.
Depends on the context.
Depends on the context. Okay, this is like would you wear this in your daily life? If you showed up to class wearing this, would I look at you funny? Probably. But it's making fashion from garbage or trash, taking something and turning it into a completely different, just a completely different use for something. That, you know, and there's a statement also about wearing trash, about wearing something that other people have thrown away, that other people consider unclean or dirty, whether it actually is or whether it's been sanitized beyond, you know, all recognition. I don't know, but just the thinking about wearing trash. It's a very powerful statement. You can always go on to like Pinterest or Etsy and see reused bottles and all these nice little contexts. You can make a nice centerpiece out of trash and little flowers. I don't know, there's really interesting ways to do with trash, but wearing it, it makes a different statement. Actually putting it on your body, displaying it. I think that's working in a different way. So yeah, this one's called Put a Lid on It, and I think it's made from different bottle caps and lids, and so again, there's a consistency there. This whole dress, but it's a very wacky dress that they've made. Speaking of clothing, and I have to say I do love it. I did not know about this until the other day, so thank you for pointing this out to me because it is just really adorable. So I see you've all had the appropriate response to this. Safety gear for small animals. So what do you think? I'm going to hear from you guys now because I've been talking a lot. So we see the little life vests and the gloves, and there's a little hard hat too. I know. So you picture like a little squirrel wearing it. So what kind of issues is this project addressing? What's going on? Besides being adorable, of course.
I don't know if this is off topic, but does anybody remember that show, Handy Hamster?
Yes.
Where they put a real hamster in like a little electric boat and drove him around a pond, and he had like a little car.